So I'll just talk for a second about one of the curiosities. We have several. We have a number. We have like 6 curiosities. One of them is the bearded piranha. But the one I want to talk about is the the tiny mummified alligators that are purported to be from ancient Egypt. Well, now, first of all, alligators aren't in Egypt. It's only crocodiles. So that's a gaffe right there. But the other thing that we talk about in the display is we talk about mummia and mummies from ancient Egypt and how in Europe for many centuries they were ground up and used medicinally, so you could find them in the apothecary. And I actually found out that in this very building where we were doing this exhibition and performance, on the 3rd floor in the 1870s was a business that created and sold mummia. So it was right here in this building on the 3rd floor that very activity was happening. And one of the things that is in our wall information is how you can tell real mummia from fake mummia. And it has to do with the smell of it and the resin and everything, because there was a big traffic in this. And when they ran out of real mummies, people would, you know, fabricate mummies. They would grave rob and create the mummies. And so this was a set of guidelines to help you figure out whether you were buying real mummia or not. But that's one of the wonderful intersections between the site where we're actually doing the piece and a little bit of history and the content of the piece and the history of the neighborhood. People used it to treat all kinds of things like nervous disorders, rheumatism, a belly ache. You know, the list is endless and would shift from one period in history, one century to the next. You know, would be a different emphasis. My work is a combination of installation and performance, usually. Usually I create some kind of physical environment that is about or supports the performance. And very often I will work over a period of years to evolve a project. So it will start with some visual objects or images and perhaps a performance that intersects with that, and then it will just grow and develop, and layers and layers and layers will be added on. For example, one of my earlier pieces was called To Us at Twilight, and again that piece grew out of a dream image that I had of a room filled with black dresses that were animated and floating in the air, and, you know, hundreds and hundreds of them flying all around the room. And so that turned into a performance piece which was about 4 generations of women in my family and growing up in the Deep South, and the kind of eccentricity and Southern Gothic world that I grew up in. And so for the performance, I took 50 black dresses and spread them out in the floor, and the performance happened over a period of time, animating all of those dresses. So I folded them, I wore them, I tied them around my waist, I made gravestones out of them. They just evolved and changed into different things as the storyline moved along. And while I was working on that performance, I was invited to do an installation. A curator saw the performance and said, "Have you ever thought about putting these black dresses on the wall?" And that was an inspiration to me, and I took some of the dresses and created tableaus that were related to the stories about the women in the performance, and so those would hang on the walls around the gallery, and then you would see the performance in the center part of the gallery. So for example, one of the dresses was covered in red clay mud and thorns. Another dress was had glass inside of it and constantly rotated around and around and around and around, making this sort of tinkling noise. And they all, the imagery and the visual part was related to the stories in some way. So that gives an idea of the kinds of pieces that I do.
Okay.
This has been an extraordinary opportunity to have this particular site for the performance and the installation. But that said, I do think that it can have a continued life, and that it's interesting because I think that it can be shown in a gallery as an installation with a performance, but I also think that it can be shown in a theater context as well. So, and I believe it can be historically cited, you know, in a museum or an old house or a building that is, you know, on the historical register. So there are a lot of opportunities and ways to present it, and I'm very interested in pursuing that, particularly the idea of touring it and having it have an extended life and have an audience beyond New York. And in terms of other projects, I don't know. I don't know yet. I'm sure there will be a next project, and hopefully fairly soon. I've worked on this project, I've worked on evolving this project for 7 years or more, and so that's persistence in focus, and also time to take what I've learned in this project and apply it to the next one.